What up? What up? It is Alex, the fantasy football hustler, with another IDP video for you IDP savants. What is going down, guys? We got linebackers to talk about. We got defensive linemen to talk about. We got DBs to talk about. If it's your first time here, hit subscribe because you know that there are very few people bringing you any kind of IDP resources out there. And I got a whole bunch of IDP resources. This is just one of the videos. If you want more resources, go to 420crew.com. Go join the community. If you play an IDP 1, 2, 3, that's what all this video is based on. IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. If you don't know what that scoring is, click pause right now. Now, the first guy, I mentioned him a few times, and he's still 0% rostered. Azeez Ojulari. I mean, look at what he's been doing just in the last 3 weeks. 2 games, 24 points or higher, 13 in the other one. The offense has been so bad for the Giants. They're just on the field a lot, and he's been someone who's been getting a bunch of tackles, mixing in the sacks, and a guy who you need to get on your team and pick up right now if you need the depth.
Pick him up!
Do it. I got a rookie to add to the list. He's been handling biz over the last couple weeks, and then with Quay Walker not playing, he took a massive bump in the amount of tackles that he threw down. I'm talking about Mr. Edgerrin Cooper. Oh, yeah, for the Packers. Even if Quay Walker comes back, he was still having like solid games with a solid amount of tackles. I think this is someone you need to go pick up.
Pick him up!
Only 1% rostered in Yahoo redraft leagues, not on the radar for a lot of people. Probably will be now that Quay Walker was out and he had a boss game. Let's go make these moves. Jumping over to the Patriots now and talk about one of their linebackers, if you're playing sleeper, linebacker / DL, Christian Ellis. Back-to-back games with 9 total tackles in each game, had a sack this past week as well. We really love IDP players whose offenses suck, because that just means that the defense is going to be on the field more. They're going to be in position to get just a lot more points. And over these last 2 weeks, 13 points 2 weeks ago, 25 points. This last week, we go back a couple weeks, he mixed in some double-digit points. They just got rid of Uche and traded him over to the Chiefs. So this could mean more opportunities for a guy like Ellis moving forward. Next guy I'm going to mention here, Daiyan Henley, second-year linebacker from the Chargers. They also got Denzel Perryman over there, and they also got Junior Colson. But what I've seen over the last couple weeks is Daiyan Henley is the one who's getting the majority of the snaps. He played 100% of snaps this past week. Since their bye, he's played the highest percentage of snaps compared to any of those other linebackers. So this is the guy who I feel that if you're going to pick up and stash a linebacker for the second half of the season, this is the guy that you do it with.
Pick him up!
Go do it. My last linebacker to mention here, DeMarvion Overshown from the Dallas Cowboys. Double-digit points is just something of the regular for him. He had 20 points this past week versus the 49ers. I know Eric Kendricks being banged up is maybe helping him a little bit, getting more tackles, but it doesn't matter. This guy has been very solid the entire year. He did not play last year, so a lot of people don't even know who he is because he was hurt last year. But if he's available, go pick him up.
Pick him up!
I've mentioned him more than a handful of times throughout this season, and maybe he got massively dropped on the bye week because now he's only 4% rostered. I try to talk about guys on this video who are 5% rostered in Yahoo redraft leagues or less. And if he's available in your league and you deploy more than one linebacker, you need to be going and picking him up right now. There's a couple hitters for your linebacker position right there. And let's go ahead and get into the defensive line position now. The D linemen are kind of like tight ends, where there's really only a couple decent ones that are out there on waiver. All the best ones are taken. But George Karlaftis, someone who's only rostered in 3% of Yahoo redraft leagues, he's been coming on since their bye week. 15 points 2 weeks ago, 18 points this last week. Got a sack in each of those games, going up against the Bucs and the Broncos over the next 2 weeks. 2 teams that give up some sacks to the defense. So if he's available,
pick him up!
It's very slim out there. There's another D lineman for you guys. And if you play in sleeper, he actually has the dual eligibility, but we always get more value if we put these guys in at the linebacker. We always get more value if we put these guys in at the DL position. Just remember that. 3 out of the last 4 weeks, over 13 points. This past week versus Baltimore, 17 total points. He's had a sack in 3 of the last 4 games going up against the Chargers and their banged up line. I think he is someone that you pick up.
Pick him up!
And fire up.
All right, fire him up!
All right, I got an oldie but a goodie for you guys.
What we gonna do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
Calais Campbell. Dude, ever since their bye week, double-digit points each of those 2 games, and there was no sacks mixed in as well. That's one of the things that if he mixes in a sack, his numbers are going to get up there. But because of his tackles is a reason why he's been getting up there. We like that. They got Buffalo coming up this week, really the best as far as like defensive ends getting sacks or whatever. But Calais Campbell has been on a tear, and I think you need to pick him up right away if you need DL depth moving forward.
Pick him up!
I know you've heard me mention Keion White before. He's gone in waves of being good and being whatever, but they did trade away one of their linemen, Uche, to the Chiefs. So maybe that just equals more snaps for a lot of these other guys who are kind of like rotational players on the line. Out of 8 games, he has 5 double-digit games. Now, 3 of those were in the first 3 weeks. But now, with them getting rid of Uche, I'm just assuming it's going to mean a few more snaps for guys like Keion White. And I think that if you are super desperate at the DL spot and you need some depth, especially this week, he's going up against Tennessee. Tennessee is one of the best matchups that you can have for your defensive linemen. And then they got Cincy the next week after that. They have been giving up some points to the defensive linemen as well. So Keion White, you could do a lot worse. That is for sure. Very quick hitters for the DLs this week. Let's jump into the DBs. My first DB to mention here, I mentioned him last week. I mentioned him for a few weeks. Tre'Von Moehrig, 23 points this past week versus the Chiefs. He had that INT. He had 9 total tackles. The Raiders suck on offense, so we want their defensive players. That's just the way that it works, and their safeties have been very solid. Moehrig, if he is available, shame on you because you already should have picked him up, but go pick him up.
Pick him up!
Let's go. Now, because we have some insanely heavy bye weeks coming up now through week 14, every week except week 13, I got to throw some guys on the radar who've already had their bye week who might be able to get you through a few weeks. Byron Murphy Jr. He's been one of the staples of the Minnesota Vikings' new revamped defense. He had 22 points this past week. He had an interception. He had 4 tackles. He's got Indy coming up this next week, and then you got Jacksonville coming up the week after. Not like the best matchups for DBs necessarily, but if there's a number 1 wide receiver on that team who gets peppered a lot, Byron Murphy Jr. is going to be playing that person, and he's going to be getting a bunch of tackles just by covering that person. And it's so hard to run on the Minnesota Vikings. Teams just have to throw more and more. So Byron Murphy Jr., if you are hurting at DB, I think he's very solid over these next couple weeks.
Pick him up!
I don't usually mention cornerbacks too much, but Byron Murphy Jr., cornerback. AJ Terrell, who I'm mentioning now, cornerback. Over 14 points in the last 3 weeks. He gets a lot of tackles. He has 2 interceptions over the last 3 weeks. If the Falcons get into up tempo where they are throwing the ball a lot, what's that mean the other team's going to have to do to keep pace? Throw the ball a lot. And then who do they throw to? They throw at AJ Terrell because he's always guarding the best wide receiver on that team. Got CeeDee Lamb this week. Who gets the most targets on Dallas? CeeDee Lamb. Who's going to get the most tackles against Dallas this week? Probably AJ Terrell because CeeDee Lamb is going to be getting targeted so much. You're welcome. Next guy here, Eric Murray from the Houston Texans. I mentioned him a few times this year. Every other game, he gets 20 points. So maybe this is the week that he doesn't get 20 points, but I would pick him up now because even after this Jets game, he's got Detroit and he's got Dallas. So there's going to be a lot of passing in those couple games, like right there. So this may be more of a pick up and stash for a week, but as bad as Aaron Rodgers has been looking over the last couple weeks, Eric Murray might get an interception this week for all we know. He's 0% rostered. Nobody knows about him except for me when I tell you guys like about him. So if you are hurting for a DB,
pick him up.
My last DB to mention here, he's only 1% rostered. Mike Jackson. I know, yeah. Don't stop till you get enough.
You know, I was wondering,
He's got some great matchups over the next 2 weeks. The Saints and the Giants. They give up a ton of points to the defensive backs. He's only 1% rostered, so he is readily available, plays all the snaps out there. And what more could you want? And you know that teams are trying to just destroy the Panthers, try to get back all the stats that they couldn't get in the last couple weeks. So they are getting thrown on a bunch, and Mike Jackson getting a bunch of tackles. Look at this last week, 10 total tackles. 9 of them were solo. Pick him up.
Pick him up.
Yes, we made it all the way to the end of this IDP video. If you're an IDP loyalist like me, one of our favorite phrases is fuck team defense. I want to see some fuck team defense in the comments. Thank you guys. You know that there is very few people who are actually bringing you this IDP heat. Remember, if I mention guys who you're like, why would I pick up guys like that when there's all these better people? I'm trying to do this for the masses. If there are better people on waiver wires than the people I've mentioned, leave a comment and let me know, because I do my best to answer comments. If you want to get more one-on-one help, go to 420crew.com. Most of the stuff that I do is around the fantasy football consulting. So if you need a consultant like myself for IDP, for offense, for trades, literally whatever, I've been playing fantasy football for about 20 years now. I've been giving fantasy advice for about 15 years now. Championship advice, mind you. And I've been playing IDP since I started. I'm not like these guys that you see who are like, oh yeah, I just started playing IDP 2 years ago. Now I'm giving all this advice on it. No, that's not me. Literally the first league that I played in had IDP, and I've been playing ever since. And this scoring system, IDP 1, 2, 3, I had a very similar scoring system that I created in like 2010. And we've been killing it ever since. So what are you going to do? Hit that subscribe, turn on the notifications, and go click on one of the other videos that's popping up right now as well. It could save your season.